Welcome to Friday. Sorry about 9:06. I was trying to turn volumes down and things like that. Welcome to the morning show. And we're going to be kind of all over the place today. I mean, for obvious reasons. There's a little bit of MLS going on. You've got the national competitions going on. You've got stuff from yesterday. There's a lot of news from yesterday that we need to get into. We're going to try and see if folks have turned their cell phones on, or at least they have cell signals. And we're gonna celebrate a bit today because of a history-making moment that happened yesterday. As I sit here and stare at my reflection, and my hair's already all over the place. History-making moment yesterday, and there's a reason that it took me a minute to find it for almost for obvious reasons. But today, I believe we are all San Marino. We are all San Marino, and probably also pouring one out for Liechtenstein. So. We are all San Marino today. We're going to get into that as we go here. And since that is opening kickoff, once again, no dilly, no dally zone. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there is the QR code for those of you who are watching, however you're watching us this morning, whether it is on the 280-character app, it's the Twitch, or it is on the YouTubes. That's your QR code to get into Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You hit that QR code, you get your coffee to start your day, maybe even to kick off your day. See what I did there? And then from there, don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives, very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So there is a lot to get into today. It's a lot of newsy stuff today. And so what we figured we would do, since we are all San Marino today, we are all San Marino. There was a moment yesterday that a lot of us will not forget. The junkies of us who follow international soccer, losing streaks, winning streaks, those kinds of things, and moments going forward, seminal moments in programs. It happened yesterday afternoon late. And for those of us who are following the lowest rated national soccer program in the world, San Marino, our friends at number 210 out of 210. They got a lead, but the question was, could they hang on to said lead and get a win in international competition? Here's the ending. I know it kind of spoils it a little bit, courtesy of our friends of Optus Sports and UEFA, their own self.
This is not a drill. Remember the time, the date, and the place. 3 decades of toil are over. San Marino have finally won a competitive game of football. Scenes of utter joy and jubilation. The catalyst for which the goal scored by the teenage forward Nico Sensoli on his competitive debut. His name forever, like the other names involved tonight, will be written into San Milanese footballing folklore.
1-0 was your final. Goal in the 50s by someone in their competitive debut for their national. Man, look at that. I mean, seriously, I'm hearing that moment all over again. And it's like I'm The Rock all of a sudden at WrestleMania 40, hitting the forearm. But competitive debut for a forward that scores a goal. First win in 20 years in international football for San Marino. Landlocked principality. And the kid wasn't even alive when this streak started. So 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old losing streak, flipped yesterday when San Marino at home beats Liechtenstein 1-0. And for full disclosure, we have reached out to our friends at the Sweeper Pod who were there, and to the Federation itself to see if we can get any kind of reaction from San Marino about all of this. And hopefully we'll have them on next week to kind of break everything down where they can catch their breath a little bit. Group D1, lowest divisions in Nations League. paired with Liechtenstein, you get a win. First time in 20-plus years, a competitive match, San Marino gets a win. The worst team in the FIFA rankings at number 210. 140-game winless streak. 140 games. I mean, in the SEC, that's like what? 12 years of not winning a game? And I know that leading into this season, I know a lot of folks are sitting there saying, looking at you, Vanderbilt. 12 years of not winning a football game. I mean, that's like McAllister level stuff in Division III. And they only got into the 50s, I think. But 140 games dating back to April 2004, San Marino had not won a competitive match. You have that moment yesterday at the Stadio Olimpico in front of a crowd that the capacity is 6,700. There weren't that many there. Maybe a couple hundred, maybe 1,000, as I'm sitting here and looking at the stands themselves. But to have a moment like that yesterday for San Marino, Nico Sensoli in the 53rd minute gets the one goal on the day, and it was almost two because they had a goal early. Liechtenstein had a goal early, but it was wiped out by VAR. So maybe the stars were aligning, Maybe they were. And if you looked on social media for those that were locked into the whole thing, there were a lot of folks that were kind of following along. We all have our lovable losers. And San Marino, to a certain extent, probably was one of those in the sense of, 140 matches, really? Yeah, it was 140 matches. It is now officially over and done, and the win streak is now at 1. But I had a question, and if our intrepid reporters, meaning y'all, can figure out who this individual was. If you look and you go back into a lot of the pictures, a lot of the stills from the crowd that was there yesterday, I'm not kidding. There was a dude who was there, and this is why I wanted to get the Sweeper Pod guys on the show. There was a guy there wearing an Atlanta United 5 stripes jersey. I'm not kidding. I would not make this kind of stuff up. At a seminal moment in European national team history, in a principality, in a stadium that seats 6,700 that didn't have 6,700, a country that had a losing streak of 20 years, watching a piece of history was a guy in an Atlanta United jersey. I'm not kidding you. Seriously, you go back and say you look at the Sweeper Pods pictures and a couple of other pictures and video and things, you will see a guy in an Atlanta United 5 stripes jersey. I'm not kidding. And 4-card, yes, that is true. Atlanta does influence everything. So maybe, just maybe, it was the dude that was there in the Atlanta United jersey. 4-card, I think you're onto something. Maybe it was the Atlanta United jersey that influenced the UEFA Nations League, divine entities. I won't necessarily call it a god, but those in charge of the UEFA Nations League Group D1. Atlanta United jersey shows up inside the Stadio Olimpico in San Marino. San Marino wins for the first time in 20 years. You make the comparison. 4-card, you're onto something. You make your own conclusions, but I think 4-card is onto something. The fact that a guy wearing an Atlanta United jersey was there at the match against Liechtenstein and San Marino wins, I want to find out, and I'm hoping that we can get to the bottom of this. I'm hoping that there can be some intrepid detective work here. We can figure out who this guy is. And if we figure out who it is, I want him on the show. I want him on the morning show. Does he live in San Marino? Does he live in Italy? Is he, was he on tour? Was he just kind of blowing by? Oh, I think I'll check out San Marino and Liechtenstein for like $10. Oh, I've seen a piece of history. Wearing an Atlanta United 5 stripes jersey. I'm not kidding. So if we, through our intrepid detective work and all of our tentacles that we have when it comes to our soccer connection, can find out who this guy is, and like I said, that's why I went out to Sweeper Pod and tried to see if we could get Lee and Paul on the show in some manner, way, shape, or form. But they're kind of busy. They hit the emergency pod last night in Saravalle after the match was over. But our assignment going forward, heading into the weekend and going into next week, who was this dude that was wearing the Atlanta United jersey that caused, perhaps, like I said, make your own conclusions, that perhaps lent San Marino to their first national team victory in 20 years. I mean, think about it. And Alex has graciously posted said tweet with said link. But serious, I'm not kidding, man. I'm not kidding. Picture is there. Dude in Atlanta United jersey in San Marino for history last night in the Nations League. That happened. Who is this guy? That is our quest going forward. Who is this individual? Are you native? Are you European? Did you dig the five stripes? Do you live in San Marino? What's it like? All of these questions that I have. I say we get our detective hats on and figure out who this individual is. That is our national quest, or international quest, actually, now going forward. So let's find out who this guy is and try to get him on the morning show. But today we are all San Marino. Now, the question is, do we all turn into Liechtenstein? Because Liechtenstein now holds the longest winless run of any nation in the world. Their last win, I believe, was against San Marino. And it was a while ago. By the way, these two sides meet again in Liechtenstein in November. 20 years, 141 matches. So absolutely craziness. Or just absolute craziness. Forza Titani, as Nick would say. But San Marino got the Duke yesterday. And we got to find out who this guy is. See, now I'm all revved up now. We got to figure out who this dude is. Yes, Alex, God bless you. One of the guys who went. Wait a second. Wait, one of the guys who went and is from Newcastle happens to follow. Yes, DM this gentleman. See, I knew that we had detectives and connections out there. Alex, God bless you if this happens. If this turns into a connection and a soccer love connection where we can find out who this gentleman is, that would be fantastic. And you would be an amazing individual, even more than you are normally. You are an amazing individual. This would put you on like amazing. If we can get one step closer to figuring out who this is. So that would be amazing stuff if we can get to the bottom of this. So that's your opening kickoff. We are all San Marino today, and now we're all Liechtenstein as well. And now we just have to figure out how we can support Liechtenstein. Maybe we like them except when they play San Marino. I don't know. But San Marino wins for the first time. Dude, the goal scorer wasn't even alive last time the team won on a national basis. So Group D had an upset of proportions unbeknownst to mankind until today or yesterday afternoon. So once again, today, we are all San Marino. That's opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And when I can dial up the QR code, I'll let you know. There we go. There's the QR code. For those of you who are watching, however you are watching, whether it is on the 280-character app, the Twitch, or on the YouTubes, hit that QR code at Kickoff Coffee. Kick off your day with them. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 at checkout. That way you get 15% off of your coffee and other things, all of your stuff, your bill. Get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10%, reinvest it in youth games, youth initiatives. That's from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. And so now, that's where I remind you about our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Alliance Nurse Corps, trading in one QR code for another. If you are looking for your next stage in your nursing career, or if you are looking for a career in nursing, check out our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. Over 30 years of experience in finding folks their career or their next career in nursing. You hit that QR code, which is different from the QR code at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. You hit that QR code that starts your path with our friends at Alliance Nurse Corps. And then when you are asked how you found out about Alliance Nurse Corps, you sit there and you go, well, SDH, of course. Soccer down here. That's how you found out. Wow. Are you serious? Alex, are you serious? Alex has posted who this individual is. Are you serious with this? It took Alex like a minute and a half. Andrew Ernest, you're on the clock. Andrew Ernest is on the clock, people. So it appears. See, now, and this is the other thing before we get into the chaos of everything else going on in the computer world. All right, so, and this will be an addendum to kickoff, to opening kickoff. So, all right. So Stephen Allen and Alex, literally it took Alex like 4 minutes. Andrew Ernest. So, yes, Alex, if you would be so kind to reach out to both Stephen Allen and Andrew Ernest, we need to have Andrew Ernest on the program. Alex, like I said, we as the collective, but Alex specifically in this case, it took Alex literally 3 minutes to get to the bottom of it. Bam! Andrew Ernest was at this match. Oh, boy. All right, Andrew Ernest. Alex, if you would once again, please, how do we phrase this? Make those first steps and make the introductions. Go, hey, yo, Andrew Ernest, we need you on the morning show because we need to find out what happened in San Marino. Unbelievable. Alex, that's fantastic. It took Alex 3 minutes to figure out who this guy is. So there you go. 3 minutes, and it's Andrew Ernest. So Kismet, Karma, fantastic. So Alex says, yeah, I'm normally useless for this because my account's private, but it is Kismet. Kismet, Karma, and it was meant to be. So Andrew Ernest. Okay, I will reply to the tweet. Got it. And let them both know I want to talk. Yes. Okay. So it will be my my duty going forward to find out how we can get Andrew Ernest on the program because we have to talk about history. Speaking of national team stuff, and we might carry this through, but there was some interesting stuff. We mentioned what's going on with the U.S. national team and Mikey Veras. And by the way, there is a new Soccer for U.S. POD coming out quickly. It does exist. It just has to be filed to the network. But Matthew Cianiti, who works at TSN, the big network, the big TV, one of the big TV networks up in Canada. Matthew Cianiti yesterday got to kind of catch up, or at least listen to, Kyle Larin, Alphonso Davies, and Jesse Marsh. And they were asked about the drone scandal involving Canada Soccer. The questions and answers pretty much went the direction that you could go. Kyle Larin, question to Kyle. Have you ever watched any drone footage to prepare for an opponent? That's kind of a pokey. That's kind of a direct question. So Kyle Larin, in response, I think that situation is for the CSA to deal with. That's obviously a conversation around the CSA and in the team, but that's for the CSA to deal with. An investigation is still going on. Kyle Larin has talked to his lawyers. Follow-up. Do speculation and accusations about drones and drone footage taint the accomplishments of this team, especially its qualification for the 22 World Cup? Answer. The work that we did on the field every day in The work that we did on the field every day in and day out. Okay. The work that we did on the field every day in and day out was the reason why we got into the World Cup and how well we did in qualifying. We trained hard. We prepared well tactically, and we showed it on the field. When you watch the game, it's what we do on the field. So that was Kyle Laren. Jesse Marsh. To Jesse, there was plenty of momentum around this team following Copa America. How has that been affected by the drone scandal? And we all know that Jesse Marsh was pretty hot when he found out about it. Response by Jesse. For us, the drone scandal is not a part of our preparation or even in our mindset. Our mindset has been entirely on getting back together, enjoying our time together, the preparation for 2 important games. I haven't even heard the word drone other than you guys in the media. We're excited for these matches and we're ready to go. Follow-up, can you shed any light on the drone situation that apparently happened during the Copa America? Once again, answer Jesse Marsh. We have to respect the investigation and it will all come out soon enough. Alfonso Davies. Question. Have you ever watched any drone footage to prepare for an opponent? I'm imagining that both Davies and Laren were at the table at the time. Answer. For me, as of now, I'm going to let the CSA do its investigation. For me, my main focus is the 2 games coming up to focus on that and to play the best of our ability that we can. Follow up. Do speculation and accusations about drones and drone footage taint the accomplishments of this team, especially its qualification for the 22 World Cup? Answer. People talking about drones doesn't take away from the fact how well this team is doing. Everyone sees how well we're doing with the new coach and some new players coming in, and keep that momentum going, focus on these 2 games and get something out of it. So that was Alfonso Davies, Jesse Marsh, and Kyle Laren as the Canadian team gets prepared for their couple of friendlies here in this particular window. And you know, to Canada, to Jesse Marsh's somewhat credit, hey, we're focusing on us. And if any of y'all want to talk about this, you know, to be perfectly honest, Marsh was hot about it when he found out about it. Basically said, if any of this is happening, this stops right now. This absolutely stops right now. So you have a couple of things going on with the men's national team. You got a couple of matches coming up. There's one tomorrow against the team. I don't know if you've heard them about. They're referred to as the United States. So the men's national team is going up against the U.S., and then they go up against Mexico. So it's the men's international series in the United States. We mentioned the roster that's there. And it's Jesse Marsh going up against Mikey Veras. We know that Mikey Veras is, you know, he's there for until the announcement of announcements is made about Mauricio Pochettino. Apparently, the runway is clear for Mauricio Pochettino to sign up and be a part of the U.S. men's national team. But we don't know when that's going to be. All of the stuff that we talked about involving Pochettino and his contract and making sure that all the dollars were squared away and that, okay, you know, we owe you, but you can't chase after anything if you're Chelsea, according to Bowley Clearlake, until we get all the money squared away, and that's figured out. That's apparently all figured out. So now, for the second week in a row, after that information has come out, we end a week here on the network and the morning show where apparently there is a green light for something to be said, an announcement to be made, and for the new generation of U.S. soccer to occur. Could, you know, hey, last week they said, hey, it could happen late this week. This week early, they said it could happen at any point this week. It could happen, you know, in the midweek, could happen later this week. It makes you wonder if that in this window, if you want to make a big splash, maybe you wait until last match of the window and figure out, okay, maybe this is when we sit there and we make our announcements. So we'll find out about what's going on with the U.S. men's national team at the most. I'm sure that it will probably end up being knowing the men's national team and knowing most breaking news on this particular show. It will end up being like at 11:15 or 11:20, just long enough after the show is over for them to make a major announcement. That's always how it works. We don't really get major announcements during the show to talk about it. We did this week, but that's not normal. Okay. It is 9:30. Actually, it's 9:31. So blame me. I'm like a minute behind everything. It's like I talk too much. I'm like a minute talking longer. It's time to catch up with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring, and that means that we catch up with Greg Garza this time and go over the world of mentoring questions and answers and dealing with mentees and generational gaps and things like that. Time for the Friday Free Kick, which means we roll a fancy open. See, Greg, it's a fancy open.
What's up?
You tell me. Are you globetrotting or are you local?
I am home at the moment.
Okay, and so he's having which cup of coffee is this? You okay?
That went down the wrong pipe.
You okay, brother?
I'm all right, man. I got to take another drink. I feel like this thermos didn't work. I was expecting a hot drink and it was cold.
Uh-oh. You see, go for it. Take it. Yeah, clear it
There
out.
we go. There we go. I had to
Clear it out. Clear it out.
At least it didn't go at the camera.
Woo! Well, but see, now if that had been a spit take, then you and the boss, that would have been an interesting purchase. You're going over to Best Buy and you're checking in with the Geek Squad. Excuse me. So what happened? Why are you buying a new computer? Yeah, I had that kind of spit on
pretty
the
much
lens.
Pretty much, man.
So how is the globetrotting going? And I know that since we're getting into the college season, high schools are kind of getting into practice as well. Where are things right now with you and Cap and Beyond Goals? What's going on?
Everything is good, man. All is well. Can't complain. Same old, getting involved with, I'm sure high school will probably start at the end of the year. So you have a few more months for that. Obviously college is all starting right now, which is always great, man.
When it comes to you looking at the college experience these days, you got to go through club and pursue it that way. College experience right now, it doesn't seem to matter what level. I mean, it could be Division I, Division II, 3, NAIA, whatever. It seems to me like the margins are closing. And so if you choose college as a path, that's cool. You know, it's not something where, you know, if you start in your Division I, that's great. If you start and it's a small college in, you know, Nebraska or Wyoming, it doesn't really matter. I think the margins are closing these days when it comes to where you can be the best you that you can be.
Most definitely. It's, you know, we want, even in our mentorship, we want kids to understand that they should take, I even tell my own kids, you want kids to take soccer as far as it takes them, right? There's so many values that they'll continue to learn. If you look at, you know, corporate hires or just major organizations and kids who, you know, don't have the opportunity to maybe live out their dream of being a professional soccer player, but they can still use an amazing education going to college and helping them learn values and things that will help them with everyday life. And, you know, the teamwork, how to deal with adversity, how to get through challenging moments, how to get through obstacles and hurdles. Those are all things learned within sport and what it provides for us. So college can provide so much in that realm as well.
Well, and at the same time, you mentioned dealing with adversity and all of these obstacles that you would tackle on a daily basis outside of the athletic field. I mean, it's something that even today, when you and Cap have, you know, when you guys decided to start Beyond Goals, I'm sure, and I'm fairly sure that there was a learning curve going in. There's a learning curve even now as you're going. And I think that in stages, there's been learning as you've gone. How much learning have you and Michael had when it comes to building Beyond Goals, hitting separate stages and going, okay, we need to do this. We need to add this. How much learning have you guys even done today?
We say it all the time, right? I think we speak about it all the time. We learn, there are so many things that we learn from kids. I was actually speaking to Mike Conti about this last night at the Atlanta Journal, Sports Business Journal panel that I was invited to last night, which I will say this, I was extremely disappointed. They mentioned every professional former athlete there and did not mention Atlanta United or me. So that was kind of upsetting. But other than that, you know, as I mentioned that to Mike Conti last night, of just there are so many cool things that we learn, even as adults, from these kids and the ways that they think and the way that they carry themselves, and how we can continue to produce new ideas and build new platforms to help others, right? Because some kids already some kids already have it. Some kids already have certain qualities within their personality and the character that they are that allow them to be role models for others. And I love using examples of those elite personality kids to other kids who may be struggling in those areas.
But I would also imagine that there are elite athletes that young athletes look to, that for one reason or another, you might have to steer them away from those certain athletes. You know, you may sit there and think that, you know, so-and-so might be a great mentor, but the more that you learn about these individuals, you might have to steer away from them. How many warning signs do you and Michael give about choosing your mentors wisely when you want to grow as a person?
Man, choosing mentors wisely is a big one we talk about a lot. We definitely want to bring a woman in the future. That is a huge talking point within Mike and myself. But there's so many values that they have to cover. They have to be willing to, you know, have a lot of similar thoughts that we have in regard to, most importantly, the comfort to work with kids. Not everybody likes working with kids. That's first and foremost. And there's just so many different values that we hold within, I think, ourselves that are massive. And we want them to obviously, you know, take the reins and do with it what they want in regard to maybe personal storytelling. But there is a set curriculum and things that we really like to follow, and kind of creating those conversations. So it's a difficult process finding the right person for that job, and as we continue to grow. But I think one that we will hopefully get to some point or the other.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, because to have a different voice, there's nothing wrong with different voices and different impacts, because all of those points of view that you and Michael may have, you bring in another individual, you sit there and go, okay, that's a point of view, and that's an angle that I hadn't thought of before. And you make a fantastic point about having a female influence when it comes to being a mentor as well. Literally, when you brought it up just now, I'm like, yeah, that makes a tremendous amount of sense going forward, that those kinds of voices are equally important. And it's something that in the process of thought, you're like, yeah, why didn't we think about that sooner? But the fact that you now have, I think, is just as important as having that realization.
Most definitely. Yeah. You want to continue to build in the most positive ways possible. And for Mike and I, we are extremely satisfied with where we are right now. Obviously, we want to continue to grow and want to continue to add, you know, additional assets to what we are doing. But I think it takes time. It takes time to come to an understanding of what is needed and what can help the continuous growth, and also the right personnel to go along with it.
Does it have to be an athlete, though? When you add other mentors as a part of Beyond Goals in the future, does it necessarily have to be an athlete? Can it be a captain of industry? Can it be a CEO? Or, you know, does mentoring really have a jersey? Does it have an ID card?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because you can be anyone to mentor. I think there are so many mentors out there. You speak to, whether it be CEOs or CFOs or even everyone I met last night. All of these people had their mentors to kind of guide them through and make them, not make them, but shape them into who they are today.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important path and journey for all people who are successful. There is a lot of credit that needs to be given to those around them, to those who bred that leadership from the very get-go. So that's essentially what we're doing. I think our platform is unique. I think professional athlete platform is unique, because it was really interesting, because I heard a lot of people speak last night, and whether it be from AMB or whether it be from you know, just stadiums in general. And they just kept saying, we are in the entertainment business. We are in the entertainment business. We are in the entertainment business. We're in the entertainment business. And I almost wanted to respond and say, we are the entertainers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We are the show, right? You guys are in the entertainment business, but we are the show. You go to Cirque du Soleil, you don't remember, you remember the name Cirque du Soleil, but you really give your respect, maybe not towards the people who are in the background, right? Setting everything up. You give your respect to the people who are performing. And I think that in regard to even us as professional athletes, it allows us to have, I think, even a higher platform, and everything that you say must be said well. Everything that you say must be done well. And given the fact that you are that role model. And so I think the curtain is open, right? You open those curtains to really every action, decision, thought, emotion, the role that you play within, whether it be in your professional environment or even in a public environment, means that much more.
Because to your Cirque du Soleil example, we kind of gravitate toward the person that gets launched out of the cannon. Yeah, we know the one that's on the bicycle that's in the hamster wheel that's going 9,000 miles an hour. The gymnast that can sit there and take the hula hoops and do the complete and total split at 90 feet in the air. We kind of gravitate toward those folks. So I would ask you this as the entertainer is in this discussion. How long did it take you to become comfortable knowing your role as the entertainer, but knowing that you had to hold yourself to a higher standard and know that you have to be around those folks that share your ideas, share your goals, share your vision, so you're not hanging out with the wrong crowd, even as an entertainer and an influence on others? How long did it take you to become comfortable with who you are right now?
Man, that is, I think we are continuously learning. We are continuously growing. We are continuously maturing in different ways, whether it be through experiences that we have, sometimes decisions that we make. But I think from a very early age, I give a lot of credit not only to my parents, but just people around me. And I think I had great mentors in my life to help me understand the do's, the don'ts, the rights, the wrongs, the things that are most valuable in life, and things to be grateful for, things to keep you motivated, things to help you and continue to dream towards. I think there's a lot of different values in which I learned as a very young kid, but I think also just traveling the world and seeing life in different areas and learning about different cultures, and seeing that not everybody's life is exactly the same. Not everybody's life is cookie cut. I think sometimes us as Americans, we only are focused on what we have around us, and until you go to other places in the world, you start to realize that there are smaller of things that people are very grateful for, and it has nothing to do with being spoiled, because I know here in the States, there are families and places where people do struggle quite a bit. But I could go speak to any Title I school, high school or middle school, and I can ask every kid to raise their hand, and I always do. And I ask how many of them have a console, how many of them have a phone, and 99.99% of those kids will raise a hand. Whether they have a Nintendo Switch or whether they have a PlayStation or whether they have a phone or whether they have an Xbox, doesn't matter if they live, in a trailer park, they still have a console.
Yeah.
And so, I think when you go to different places, you see life a lot differently. And I think within my experiences, I think just seeing what other kids had, whether it be in South America or mostly South America, even playing in Mexico for a long time. It's the littlest of things, right? It's taking to an orphanage there, taking a stuffy, right, a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
That's a Thai stuffed animal that for you see at Hallmark or Walgreens, or my kid wants to grab one every time at Kroger or whatever. It's $1.50, $2. For them, that just made their whole year. Right. And they're going to carry that stuffed animal, and they're going to keep it with them and cherish it because it's probably the only toy that they've ever had. So I think I learned that from a very young age, of just kind of building those values of obviously strive and motivate yourself towards more, but also be content with what's in front of you as well at all times, because there's always somebody else that's that's struggling much more than you. You can be assured that.
When can you remember when you realized that for the first time, that, yeah, I'm really fortunate, there are others who are not as fortunate, and I should, share my experiences with them? When did you have that first interaction? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think when I moved to Brazil when I was 12, and I just remember going there, and I was an average American kid, and I just think watching these kids, whether they were coming down to training from the slums and just taking public buses at the age of 11 and 12 to get to training. I think that was the moment to where I started to realize the only thing that they had, their only escape, was soccer. And, I could go back home and whether I was successful there or not as a kid, I could go back home and still go to a very decent school and do all these great things that my parents provide. And for them, these kids were already away from their parents, at that young age. And there was only one thing on their mind, and it was probably to get their parents or their family out of poverty. And that was the grind, and that was the hunger, and that was you could feel that tension within training, right? Everybody was out to, they're all great kids, but everybody at the same time was out to kill, because, these kids are 11, 12 years old, and they're already fighting, thinking about 7, 8 years from now. Whereas kids here in the States, we play soccer. I mean, I teach my kids to play soccer for fun, right? And it's something that's going to teach them so many values and teach them so many different things. But I think when you start to see in other places, these kids' mindset are completely different. And I think it gives you just a different perspective about life. And for me, it taught me that hunger. It gave me that hunger as well. I put myself in their shoes. But then again, I think it also made me take a step back and realize, I am very grateful for not only this opportunity, but just to learn from that. And I think, it kind of helped me shape myself the rest of my life to always give back, to always be a part of kids who are maybe in similar environments, and just always try to be involved in the community.
Greg Garza, Beyond Goals Mentoring, hanging out with us on the Friday Free Kick, as we do here at 9:30 on Friday mornings Eastern time. In your early relationships that you had with, fellow athletes, going from 11, 12 to when you started being a professional athlete, how many of those teenage relationships do you still have today? How many of those folks are you still in touch with, or because of, things getting in the way, it's, hard to reach them one way or the other? Do you still have those early relationships?
From kids in Brazil?
Or just early on, from like 11 to 12 to when you were really on the path to being a professional?
Yeah, of course. I still speak to some kids every once in a while. We're all still very connected within social media. I wouldn't say we have, long conversations, but just to kind of see where everybody is and see how they're doing in life is always great. There's one kid in particular that's probably a kid that I grew up with my whole entire youth, and we hit it off from the get-go. The very first Boston camp it was in Boston, in a private school, the first under 14 national team camp. And I believe I wasn't even 13 yet. I think I was just about to turn 13. I was still 12. That was my very first camp. I actually let my 7-year-old son won his 5v5 tournament this last week on Labor Day. And I let him, he couldn't find his shin guards. And I have my shin guards from that camp that I used my whole entire career. All right. So I used those same shin guards my whole entire career. Those are championship shin guards right there. Never took them. And I remember I actually lost those shin guards. Paul Dillon, the equipment manager from Atlanta United, when I separated my shoulder against Red Bull and I got the red card, Paulie D lost those shin guards, man. And I was livid, man. That's my pride and joy. He ultimately found them and sent them back to me. But, it's, I had I let my 7-year-old use those shin guards in the 5v5. And that's the one thing I told her. I said, I don't care if you lose your body today, man, but you will not lose those shin guards, man. Do not take your shin guards off. You have a rest between games. You take your cleats off. You leave those darn shin guards in, because they've lost like 8 pairs already. But that camp, going back to the story, that camp, there was a kid from Pennsylvania, and his name is Zarek Valentine. He plays for Minnesota now. Right back. He was on, and it's an interesting story. He was on Portland Timbers whenever we beat Portland Timbers in the final. He was on the right. He was playing right wing back. It was him and Aldo Polo were on my side. And that just goes to show like that's probably one of the coolest relationships that I've had within my career, that we met each other and we hit it off when we were at that age, at 12 years old. And we never fell off kind of the map. He kind of was in and out of the national team process. He got released at the under 17s, then kind of found his way back in the under 20s, under 23s. Never made it to the full team, but I mean, just somebody who was always in and out. His brother was a massive U.S. soccer prospect, Jules Valentine, who won national championship at Wake Forest back in the day. So it just and he won national championship with Akron with Caleb Porter. So just that's a particular guy right there that I think that we still keep in touch, and just somebody that I think we got to see each other grow up and have those certain values with each other. He's a great dad. He's a great husband. He's a great father. He's a great guy. And I think we got to see each other kind of have those values instilled. I owe a lot to U.S. soccer. Somebody asked me that last night, and what does U.S. soccer mean to you? And I said, man, U.S. soccer was my pathway. U.S. soccer was my pathway to success. I never missed an age group. I was from that very first Boston camp. I never missed an age group all the way up until the full team. So that was my pathway. That was my trajectory. There's very, very few of us that have done that. But they are the ones that gave me the opportunity to seek my dreams. So I love that U.S. soccer is going to be in our backyard in the next couple of years. And hopefully, I really do hope that I can have some sort of connection with everything that they have, because I am so grateful for everything that they did for me, not only as a kid to instill those values within me, but just to watch me grow up and ultimately use that pathway as my pathway to success.
So get hydrated here for a second. U.S. Soccer, if you are listening, and we know that you are, please consult Greg Garza and Michael Parkhurst when it comes to your future plans at the Arthur M. Blank Training Center going forward once you have been constructed. Okay, there we go. And the reason that I ask about relationships and past relationships is because we have our base of who we are as individuals, and it comes from those early relationships. That's the first building block that we have in figuring out who we are and who we talk to. And then as we go, you go to U.S. soccer, you become national team players, you become a player overseas. All of these different building blocks work on your foundation as to who you are as an individual. And that was why I wanted to ask about the early relationships, because that's those first bricks that get put into the foundation of who you are as a person. And that was why I wanted to ask that particular question, because that kind of forms an early relationship mentally about mentees and our ideas and where we're coming from and all those kinds of things. That's why I wanted to ask that.
For sure. There are so many implementations from what we use, and probably Parky as well, from U.S. soccer with our mentees, right? The personality and character. To me, I think about it as, it's one thing to see these kids and being at the Atlanta United Academy dinner the other night. It's one thing to see these kids represent their city, right? There's one thing, these kids are at the pinnacle of their city, yep. Right? And just for me to kind of, I couldn't have ever fathomed the idea of being their age at 12 years old, younger than them. I represented my country at every single age group. And I think that is something to just really understand the role model. And I think I knew of that at the time, but I think now that I'm retired, it really allows me to understand the character and the leadership qualities and everything that goes within to represent your country is much different than representing your city. And I remember whenever somebody would ask me what it means like to represent your national team. And for me, it was, even at a young age, I had always told them, I feel like, I said, I give the utmost respect, and there is nothing else that I would respect more than our military. Mm-hmm. Everybody who is in the military, whether it's Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, right? All these, but I felt, whenever representing your country, I think a lot of us felt that same passion, right? You are representing your flag everywhere you go, and that's something that I think I take with a lot of pride. And I always kind of use that analogy of kind of, wherever these guys go, they always have their flag stitched on their arm, and so I think for us it was very similar, and I think those are the values that I try to instill within a lot of young kids. And I mean, although I might be speaking from a different platform of representing my country, but with those kids, it's the same values that they need to do to represent the badge that they're also representing. And I think that's an important thing.
So then, since you opened this door, you've obviously been looking at my notes to talk to you this morning. U.S. soccer, they've got a couple of friendlies coming up this weekend, and the first one is against Canada. And, like I said, knowing our notes and knowing where the conversations go, sometimes I don't even know where the conversation's going to go. We open a door and we head to a certain place. You got a friendly coming up against Canada tomorrow in Kansas City. And before you came on, the questions have been asked of the Canadian national team about the whole drone bit and getting these kinds of alleged unfair advantages. And now you have a national team on the women's side that has been questioned, and you've seen consequences, and it's now been drifting over to the men's side, and you're wondering about consequences. Unfair advantage. This is what I wanted to ask about. When it comes to unfair advantages, have you ever been in a situation where anyone in your circle has been tempted to take an unfair advantage or take an extra advantage that really isn't ethically right? And when confronted with that kind of an ethical dilemma that you might have seen, how did you confront that kind of a situation?
Man, we could go on all day.
Okay, I'll write this down for next time.
Yeah.
Ethical dilemmas with Greg. Okay.
Yeah, it's look, playing in Copa Libertadores, I think for me was like the definition of unethical behavior to win a soccer game.
Wow.
In every way possible, right? Whether it be poisoning food, whether it be I watched like Argentina and Chile last night.
Yeah.
It was a war. It wasn't even a freaking soccer game. It was the most boring. I turned it off to watch the U.S. Open after the first half. I didn't care what was going to happen. I think I saw like 75 fouls within the first half and like 11 yellow cards.
I was going to say, and how many were called? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I think back to Copa Libertadores for me, and it was just like, holy crap, man, this is a different world. Mm-hmm. South Americans, they will kill.
Yes.
for whatever they represent.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I have a lot of stories whenever I played for Tijuana and Copa Libertadores. So being in Brazil, man, so we can share those stories next time.
Nice. So ethical dilemmas do in fact okay, so I did write it down. Ethical dilemmas with Greg. So we got that.
I always tell kids, look, and even I tell my own kids, do whatever you can to win. Just don't cheat.
There you go.
Right?
Okay.
Do whatever you can to win. And that's one thing that I think I wish we would learn as Americans. We are too nice sometimes. We are innocent. I see kids all the time. If I were to play in Brazil, right, and whenever I was a kid, I was my son's age when I moved, and there was a ball going out of bounds, I wouldn't run to go get it. I would take my sweet old time to take that throw in. Or if I'm on the bench and that ball goes out and I'm warming up, I just kind of lift up my foot and let it go through. Yeah, let it go. It's the other team's ball or it's our ball. Oh, I didn't see it go by me.
Oh, man, what happened?
Yeah, right? You see pros do that all the time. They will do whatever they can to win. They won't cheat. It's not cheating, but they will take it to their limits. Yeah. Whereas kids, my son, the ball will go out of bounds and we're winning 2-1 and there's a minute left and he'll run as quickly as he can and he'll throw the ball in. And I'm like, dude, just relax. Take your time. Take 60 seconds, take 90 seconds off the clock. You guys don't play extra time in youth soccer, man. So, it's when that ref, he sees 30 minutes, he's going to blow the whistle. He don't care. And so I wish we had that. There's a saying we have in Portuguese and I love it. And it's be malicious without malice.
There you go.
And so it's that's a great saying to use. You got to be careful with how you say it,
True.
but be malicious without malice is a good saying, because you never want to be evil, but if you can do a little something to kind of I always tell kids as defenders, right? If there's a runner making a run in behind, just step right in front of him as he's making that run. Just block his trajectory, right? Is that a malicious thing to do? Yeah, it is, but you're not doing any evil. You're not wanting to hurt the guy. You're just blocking his trajectory so he can't run in behind you. Because if he does run in behind you and that ball goes over, well, guess what? It's your head, man, not his.
It's a 2-on-1.
Yeah, exactly. So there's little things like that I think have helped. And I think that even with mentees, sometimes if they're open to it, I usually do it with the older ones. I don't speak like that with kids who are usually under 15. If you're over 15, then we can have those conversations.
Yes. All right. So the fourth held up the board, and we are over. But as always, my friend, great to catch up with you. And so we will discuss ethical dilemmas, being too nice, and being malicious without malice next time. I wrote it down, my friend. Go get hydrated. Have a great
Sounds good. Take care, man.
All right. That's Greg.
Bye-bye.
That's Friday Free Kick with Greg Garza. And so I have that stuff written down. So for the next time, when Greg is with us, we have ethical dilemmas with Greg. Like literally, I have it written down. Ethical dilemmas with Greg Garza. The U.S. being too nice, or just being too nice in general, and being malicious without malice. All right, so that we've got with Greg and our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. So, reminder. So I'm going to remind myself, you got stuff with Greg. So here. All right. So what I'm doing, I'm not throwing this piece of paper away, putting it where the other pieces of paper are. So Greg's notes for next time right there at BG Mentoring on the Twitters. And it is a full conversation with Greg and with Michael Parkhurst, and can't thank them enough when it comes to taking their time on a Friday morning to talk about mentoring and what they're doing at Beyond Goals and the importance of topics. And like I said, traditionally, I might have a topic or two in mind with Greg and with Parky when they come on, but most of the time it's from their answers where I steer the conversation. Because if there's a talking point that opens a door, then I think that it's a door worth opening. And so then we go through that door. And if they say something else, we'll go through that door. We say something else, we go through that door. And so literally it's almost like a Q&A treasure hunt, because you find answers that you might not have necessarily even thought of when it comes to asking a question or going down a particular pathway. So like I said, most of the time it might be a question or two that I have locked in, but most of the time it is just learning from them as we go, and then kind of seeing where the road leads. But once again, at BG Mentoring on the Twitters, and also on the board, it is at MF Parkhurst, and Greg is on Instagram, but he is not on the 280 character app. So I think it's GM Garza on the Insta, the gram, or the IG, as the kids say, and then MF Parkhurst and BG Mentoring on the Twitters. And so it's always great to catch up with them. All right, it is hour number 2. So let's see who joined us this morning so far, who has commented on the Twitch pitch and saying hi to everybody who's with us this morning. Morning, Alex. Morning, 4-card. Morning, Ropes. Yes, happy retirement to Alex Morgan. The numbers, we'll go to Alex Morgan's numbers, and we'll talk about that briefly here. Alex did a yeoman job in investigating, and it took him 3 minutes to figure out who it was that was wearing the Atlanta United jersey in San Marino yesterday, as today we are all San Marino, as their 20-year losing streak in international competition is over. And so today we are all San Marino. So Alex did fantastic work. Morning, Alex, and morning, Michael Valverde, and morning, Harry. So thanks for dropping in this morning as we roll through a bunch of things. All right, so since Ropes mentioned it, we'll get into this quickly, and about someone named Alex Morgan. I don't know if you've heard of her, but yesterday during the show, her video came out where she said, one more match, I'm retiring, and I'm also we are also adding to our family. She is with child. So OptiJack yesterday came out with a couple of numbers involving Alex Morgan. 175 and 88. No women's national team player has been involved in more goals than Alex Morgan, 175, 123 and 52. 123 goals, 52 assists. Since she made her debut with the team in March of 2010, 88 goal contributions in regular season NWSL play, 60 and 28, ranks her third all time. So those are the numbers that you're looking at with Alex Morgan, just briefly scratching the surface when it comes to what Alex Morgan has accomplished in her career. The lower bowl, from what we understand at Snapdragon, is sold out. And so it will be interesting to see just how many folks will be there at Snapdragon for this last match. And you might have seen Sophia Cupertino's notification where, as Sophia is the picture taken part of the SDH network, to be able to have those pictures and be there. I think it was for Alex Morgan's penultimate match. So Alex Morgan here for She Believes, and she is retiring tomorrow. I think that's right. This weekend safely. One more match in the NWSL. Lower bowl is full at Snapdragon, looking to fill out Snapdragon for this last match with Alex Morgan, and wishing her nothing but the absolute best when it comes to that next stage of her life, which includes adding to her family and whatever else is going to be happening to Alex and her family. Wishing her obviously nothing but the best, and can't wait to see what these next steps are. We've got a bunch of news, and I wanted to, since we're kind of talking national team briefly, the Ballon d'Or stuff came out, and the names and nominations and all this kind of stuff. So men's nominees for the Ballon d'Or, and yes, I'm building up to it. So men's nominees for the Ballon d'Or: Jude Bellingham, Hakan Çalhanoğlu, Danny Carvajal, Ruben Diaz, Artem Dovbyk, Foden, Grimaldo, Haaland, Mats Hummels, Kane, Kroos, Ademola Lookman, Emiliano Martinez, Lautaro Martinez, Mbappe, Odegaard, Dani Olmo, Cole Palmer, Declan Rice, Rodri, Rudiger, Bukayo Saka, Saliba, Valverde, Vinicius Jr., Vitinha, Nico Williams, Florian Wirtz, Granit Xhaka, Lamine Yamal. That's a group of 30, and that's a big group. That's a good group. And there was a lot of beef and grief about not having Lionel Messi in that group, considering what Messi helped accomplish with the Argentine national team. So there's a lot of hue and cry about not having Messi in that group. So then we match the hue and cry with not having Messi to the women's list. And the women's list is just as intriguing. And of course, now I can't find the silly thing. So, tip of the hat once again to Cristiano Ronaldo. So CR39 scored his 900th goal in international competition. If I could spell Ballon d'Or. So he scored his 900th goal in international competition. So tip of the hat to you for getting to 900. Women's nominees, finally found it, 3, 6, 9, 12, 30 here as well. So we mentioned the hue and cry about Lionel Messi in the Ballon d'Or. Barbara Banda, Bonmati, bronze. Mariana Caldente, Tabitha Chawinga, Grace Gioro, Manuela Giuliano, Caroline Graham Hansen, Patricia Guyaro, Julia Gwynn, Hasegawa, Hegerberg, Lauren Hemp, Lindsay Horan, Lauren James. Page 2. Marie Antoinette Katoto, Alyssa Nair, Sioka Nuskin, Eva Pajor, Paruelo, Portillo, Alexia Puteas, Mara Ramirez, Trinity Rodman, Leah Schuler, Khadijah Shaw. So Bunny Shaw's on there. Sophia Smith is on there. Mallory Swanson, Tarsion, and Glodis Vigostatir. There's a name. Yeah, so we mentioned the hue and cry that's attached to Messi not being on the Ballon d'Or list on the men's side. There was an equal amount of hue and cry, if not louder, on the women's soccer community of not having Naomi Girma on the list. So the color commentator jokes are always there. What is it? Three quarters of the planet is covered by water. The rest is covered by Naomi Girma. A lot of folks are saying, and perhaps, next when we have Bart on Monday, we can discuss it as well, that Naomi Girma not being on the women's Ballon d'Or list is, just as warranted of the attached hue and cry on the men's side for not having Messi as it is for not having Girma. And I know that it's offense versus defense, and you're looking, and I think that might be one of the elements that's attached to it, where Girma, because she is a defender by trade, and that's where most of her recognition is, that you have all of this offense that's attached to the Ballon d'Or nominees on the women's side, but you don't have someone who is as stout defensively as Naomi Girma, and she's not on the list. Like I said, Messi, offense, men's Ballon d'Or, that's where that hue and cry was. But a lot of folks, at least in the U.S. soccer circles, were wondering about the idea of not having Naomi Girma on the list for the women's Ballon d'Or. So food for thought going forward, that the women's Ballon d'Or and the men's Ballon d'Or, yes, they have some absences that are attached to everything. So keeping an eye on all that. All right, so this weekend, there's lower division stuff. There's some Major League Soccer stuff, so we'll have a bit of a weekend whip around, a mini weekend whip around, because we got numbers that we have to get into and juice boxes and things like that for everything that's going on. Or you got some teams that are looking at their games that they have to make up in Major League Soccer. MLS Next Pro starts their weekend, and the Twos were just promoted on MLS Next Pro social media because they're the first game in the barn this weekend. The Twos take on NYC FC2 in their first match at Icon Stadium on Randall's Island, a renovated Icon Stadium, ICAHN, named after Carl Icahn. But a renovated Icon Stadium at Randall's Island, first match there. So NYCFC, NYCFC2, we're used to seeing them playing on the turf surface on top of the parking deck on St. John's campus. No more. Icon Stadium has now been renovated on Randall's Island. It is the first match that's going to be played there. That is the new home for NYCFC2. And that is where Atlanta United, the Twos, are going to be playing on this afternoon. They are there already, and they're getting ready for a 5 o'clock game, pregame show here on the network in the 4:30 half hour. And considering what happened last time out with Atlanta United 2, you wonder about the energy level of the guys. You hope that they had their good recovery day, and that they will be locked in a match that is that is important for them in getting into the playoff picture. We'll go over the standings in just a little bit. But pregame show on the network in the 4:30 half hour, getting you ready for a 5:03 kick. And since we're discussing it, I'll let you know where you can watch. And maybe there's got to be a way that you could sync up what's going on. It's at MLSNextPro.com. And it is the match that gets you into the weekend. There are no matches on Saturday. MLS Next Pro likes to have the matches on Saturday be the matches on Saturday. You don't interfere with Major League Soccer, with your first teams, so the other matchups start on Sunday. So here's your schedule with MLS Next Pro and how it all lays itself out. Once again, the one match today is Atlanta United 2 at MICFC 2. Then nothing on Saturday. Sunday, basically everybody's playing. Everybody else. Chicago is hosting FC Cincinnati 2 at SeatGeek in Bridgeview. So there'll probably be like 9 people there to watch. Chattanooga FC is at Fort Finley hosting Columbus Crew. Columbus Crew 2, both of those are on season pass. Crown Legacy at Matthews is hosting the Purple Team. They're hosting OCB at 3 o'clock on season pass. Loons 2 is hosting Austin FC 2 at the National Sports Center Stadium in St. Paul. That's on nextpro.com. Cal State Fullerton campus in Titan Stadium, LAFC 2 is hosting Sporting Kansas City 2 at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Don't be surprised if that match gets pushed back in some way because of the heating issues, because you're talking temperatures in the triple digits. I don't know if a 1 o'clock start on a Sunday afternoon is going to warrant a 1 o'clock start on a Sunday afternoon. So do not be surprised, A, if that match gets pushed back, B, if it doesn't, that you obviously have hydration breaks, and they're very, very cognizant about when they have those hydration breaks at Cal State Fullerton. 5 Eastern on Season Pass, Rapids 2 and St. Louis City SC2. Excuse me. So St. Louis City SC2 at the University of Denver is at 5 on Season Pass. Dynamo Dos is hosting Ventura County on nextpro.com at 7 at SaberCat Stadium. Huntsville City Football Club taking on Messi and Friends 2 at Wicks Family Field and Joe Davis Stadium. That's on Season Pass. Revs, who are out of any playoff contention, any postseason contention, taking on Toronto FC2. They can be a spoiler at Gillette at 7 o'clock on nextpro.com. Out west, you've got 3 other matches. One at 7 o'clock, Whitecaps 2 hosting North Texas SC. That's at Swangard on nextpro.com. The other West Coast games also on MLSnextpro.com. Real Monarchs hosting the Town, and that is at Rio Tinto. And Tacoma Defiance hosting Portland Timbers 2. That one is at Starfire. That is at nextpro.com. So your standings, and once again, we'll go through them. We'll go west to east. Since we finished with the Western schedule, we'll go to the Western Conference first. Let you know how things stand, and we'll do it a conference at a time. North Texas is in at 48 points. City is also in at 46 points. This is into the playoffs. Ventura County's at 40. Tacoma Defiance at 39. They have 1 more win than LAFC, 2 more wins than the Town. That gets you to 7, which is the Whitecaps at 36 points. The 8 seed right now is Dynamo Dos, Houston Dynamo 2, 32 points, 2 more wins than Portland Timbers 2. So Timbers 2 right now, they're the ones below the playoff bar. 9th is them. 10th, Sporting Kansas City 2 at 31 points, 2 more wins than Austin FC 2, Los Verdos, as they're called. Real Monarchs at 26 points. Colorado is at 23 points, and Loons 2 at 21 points through 23 matches. They are 11 points out of a playoff spot with 5 matches to go. Now to the East. And here's where everything is with Atlanta United 2 in the Eastern Conference. FC Cincinnati 2 is on top right now with 43 points. They have 1 more win than Union 2. Columbus Crew 2 is at 42 points through 23 matches. NYCFC 2 has a match in hand that goes away temporarily this afternoon, and they're at 40 points. They have a better goal difference than Crown Legacy. That's why Crown Legacy are the 5. OCB is the 6 at 37. They have identical number of wins with Chicago Fire, but once again, better goal difference. So 6 and 7, Orlando City B and Chicago Fire 2. 8th is right now Messi and Friends at 36 points. They're at 10, 7, and 6. 23 matches played, 5 to go. Chattanooga FC right now, 35 points. So it was a huge win for Atlanta United 2 last weekend at Fort Finley. Pre-game show, you will hear the highlights of this chaos. There's a lot of highlights. There's a lot of chaos, but it's worth your time as you get ready for this matchup with Atlanta United 2 and NYCFC 2. So Chattanooga FC, 35 points, and that keeps them in the pack, and it keeps that 8 seed attainable from a lot of folks that are surrounding this. Carolina Core, and you'll hear the Core victory in our SDH on MLS Next Pro show that's coming out later this afternoon. Carolina Core is on a bit of a winning streak. Started out the season pretty shaky, trying to get acquainted with one another. But right now, Core at 34 points, they're in 10th. They've got a match in hand on Chattanooga. Chattanooga only has 4 matches to go. Red Bulls 2, they only have 4 matches to go. They're at 33. Atlanta United 2, 23 matches played, 29 points. So match in hand on some, including 2 teams that are above them in the standings as they're chasing after that 8th seed. So they win today, then with the same number of points as Chattanooga FC, then they would be the same number of matches played as Chattanooga FC. I'm trying to do math. They're only 4 points out of a playoff spot. 4 points out of a playoff spot. They have 5 matches to play. Toronto FC 2, 28 points. They're in 13th. They have 2 matches in hand on some, 1 match in hand on most. Huntsville City Football Club at 23 points, 23 matches in New England. The Revs and Richie Williams, 0-11-1 on the road this year, 4-4-3 at home. So the Revs could be a bit of a spoiler when it comes to any aspirations of Huntsville City of trying to chase after the Pack in that 8th seed. So that's your chaos. New England, 19 points in 23 matches. So that's where you're staring at in MLS Next Pro. Atlanta United 2, NYCFC 2, 5 o'clock this afternoon, 5:03 kick, pregame on the network before here at SDH, soccerdownhere.mixler.com. And there's got to be a way. There has got to be a way to be able to sync all of that stuff up to where you can listen to the match, all the matches, all our live stuff, soccerdownhere.mixler.com. And when you go to Mixler and you find Soccer Down Here, you go to soccerdownhere.mixler.com, hit the follow button. So that way when there's a live event with SDH, and sometimes there are even times where, especially in the high school season, late, where we have to bring out SDH2, but soccerdownhere.mixler.com, Soccer Down Here 2, usually after the first of the year, late high school season, so that's February, March, April. But soccerdownhere.mixler.com is where you get Atlanta United 2 all season long here on the SDH network. Pre-game show, you'll hear from Steve Cook about the craziness of Chattanooga. Then you'll hear about the playoff run that they're confident in that they can get into, because once again, 5 matches to go, 2 more home matches. And then after today, just to give you a reminder, with those home matches and Atlanta United 2, there are 2 home matches left for Atlanta United 2. So after today, and I'm going to recommend this, after today, with a match at Fifth Third on the 15th, which is next Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, go. It's a playoff push for Atlanta United 2. Huntsville City Football Club coming to town next Sunday to take on Atlanta United 2. This has turned into a bit of a rivalry, but after today, 5 matches left, including today in the regular season. So listen today. It's on MLSNextPro.com. There's got to be a way to sync it up. Then after that, it's Huntsville next Sunday. Then a midweek match at Crown Legacy at Matthews. Then the last home match of the year is the 24th as Inter Miami 2 comes to town. Then the last match of the season is the day after the match with Philadelphia Union. Philadelphia Union 2, 3 o'clock, last game of the regular season on the 29th at Subaru Park. We bring in Jared Smith. And Jared, I was discussing the twos, and we'll get into weekend whip around after that. But I was getting into the chaos that is right now the Eastern Conference as the twos are chasing that 8th seed in MLS Next Pro, and how things maybe lineup-wise might be a little different.
Yeah, it's the thing with the twos in general, and it's the thing with MLS Next Pro a lot of times, is it can be really tricky trying to organize your roster week to week and get training done week to week.
Mm-hmm.
When we've seen them been successful is when they've been able to train consistently together.
Yep.
When they haven't got guys pulled to the first team or called up or sent down, this first team's guys got to come down and get minutes. When they're able to develop that chemistry on the field is when we've seen those successful runs. The Chattanooga game notwithstanding, that game, it showed a lot of balls because it came back from deficit 3 times.
Yep.
But it was also incredibly weird and kind of had the air of like, you don't want to have to reproduce that. And that just kind of feels like, that goes down in folklore and we just leave it where it is.
Yes. And with the first team, the first team on a break.
We were on a break.
Yeah, so they're on a break right now. You're probably going to have some first team influence on this match this afternoon at NYC. So to your point about integration, Do you have another match with Ronald Hernandez? Does Noah Cobb come down and help you out at the back? Ephraim Morales off of his, Ephraim Morales and the red card that he picked up at core, he had his game absence, and so now Ephraim Morales. What does the back line look like today? Where did the kids, and I mean that in a birth certificate sense, the young athletes like a Dominic Chongqui, a Caden Moore, and Aiden Torres, with a match that is as important as this one is, with first teamers coming down. Like I said, we don't know which ones, but there may be an I won't say opportunity, but there may be a chance with this roster. You're going to have first teamers come down to help you try and get a result because they need reps themselves because you're in a bye week with international window, but because you also need a result to stay in the playoff hunt. This is going to be really intriguing to see how many first teamers come down, what it looks like, and what Steve Cook has to do to make an 11 and make an 18 for this trip. I'm intrigued to see how this looks after what happened in Chattanooga, but knowing that you're on the road at NYC.
Yeah, I don't think making an 18 will be the problem because guys can travel. I think Ronald Hernandez is still getting his B rehabbed, if I'm not mistaken. He should be getting close to being done, but I don't know where he is in terms of game readiness.
Right.
I think it was a meniscus for him.
Yeah, I think you're right. And by the way, the team has released, as of 6 minutes ago, a photo promoting the match where they have said they have touched down in the Empire City. So they have made the flight, and they have arrived in New York.
Good. Made it in one piece. But point being, like, I don't think putting together the 18 is going to be the problem. It's finding chemistry.
Right.
Because if you've got to push first guys in to the roster just because they need minutes, and look, first team is what drives here. Like the first team is what drives the car. So those guys got to get minutes, and they got to get minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How you balance that will be interesting to see. The twos are in a more dire situation than the first team, but they're in a situation where all you can do is just go. You need help, but all you can do is go win games.
Yep.
You got to take care of you. You got to go find a way to win games, and deal with the situation you put yourself in. Because the team we've seen for the last month and a half, John, if that team had been here, that team had been playing the way we know it can early in the season. First and second quarters of the season, we're having a different conversation about their playoff hopes and their situation. It took them a while to kind of find their sea legs, but they did this last year too. It took them a while to kind of get the engine turned over. But once it got warmed up, everything just starts kind of puttering along, and we'll see how they finish it out.
Yep. And when it comes to the younger players themselves, as someone who has spent a lot of time watching the twos, being around the twos, for you to see, and I'll wrap it in the context of Chattanooga a little bit, to see an Alan Carlton grow and evolve, to see an Ashton Gordon at 16 score his first professional goal in chaos personified, to see a Dominic Chongqui continue to grow as a left back, to see Aiden Torres as a right back continue to grow and evolve. What has it been like from your perspective to see what we're supposed to anticipate in a stereotypic sense from a second team, but you're seeing it from 16-year-olds who are constantly answering the bell in these situations? What's it been like for you to see DCQ and Torres and all these other moving parts continue to grow this season?
I think for me, it's been a matter of seeing them make just specific jumps, because progression is not a straight line. Guys progress at different levels. Sometimes they stall out. Sometimes it'll seem like they regress before they make the next jump. It's not a straight line. It's not a straight diagonal line up the graph.
Yeah.
It more kind of meanders like a drunk down the street, or up the way if you want to maintain the directional continuity.
Up the way.
That being said, what they've got to deal with is getting those guys consistent minutes, and then seeing them not just, we've said, Alan Carlton make this jump before, not just kind of jumping into the flow and trying to survive, but trying to dictate
Yeah.
game. Jay Fortune made these jumps a couple of years ago, playing next to Robbie Mertz when Mertz was here, kind of being that veteran presence. Put a dollar in the jar for that, but whatever.
Yes.
But you want to see guys make that jump where they're not just kind of part of the game; they're trying to dictate the game. They're able to go 90 minutes and not look like they just died. Because we've seen that with kids when they come up to the first team. It's when Caleb Wiley came up. Caleb Wiley wasn't going 90 minutes. Couldn't.
No.
To build up to it. It is a different animal playing at a higher level. The higher level you go, it's more intense. You're more locked in. There's mental and physical fatigue, and you have to build up the endurance and the conditioning to deal with that. So for these younger teenagers, 15, 16-year-olds, yeah, you got to have them deal with the conditioning issues mentally and physically and make those jumps. So you started to see more of them pop up in the right moment. Dominic Tronqui is just he might be built different because that kid is above where he should be at that age. I want to be careful about it though because I don't want it to sound like I don't want to set him up where everyone just instantly expects him to jump in at 16, 17 years old and start bossing games with the first team next year.
Right.
Be careful where you set the expectations for kids with the general public. Mostly because we've seen it with this fan base, is people get reactionary as hell. I mean, Jamal Taylor, when they played in before the New York City game earlier this year, Jamal plays a game. Actually, it might have been the New York City game. Jamal plays a game where he doesn't really impact the game as striker, and then the entirety of Atlanta United Twitter is just bitching at him and pissing and moaning about him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on a stretch where he's impacting games. Daniel Rio, same thing. And then when they don't impact the game, it goes right back to this guy sucks. This guy, we don't need to keep them around. These guys are backup strikers. They're backup strikers for a reason. They can pop up in moments, but they're backups. But we've seen it with the kids too. Like George Campbell had people in hell when he was here because you'd get a game where George Campbell was outstanding. He was forced to play because of injuries, and he would be great, and people would be, falling over themselves applauding him. And then, next game out, he'd have a tough game, and just people bitching about him left and right. It just happens. But you got to be careful with how you set the expectations for these kids and how kids progress because it's not linear. So start helping to dictate games and keep taking those next steps for guys like that. For guys like, Luke Brennan's a unique one because I expected to see a lot more Luke Brennan with the second team this year, but he's been making the first team bench. And frankly, like if Shante Silva's banged up, I want to see more of Luke Brennan with the first team. Because what I wanted to see out of Luke Brennan is what we saw from Morales, which is and it's not the same situation. I thought Efra was on the bubble when he just started balling out. Luke isn't really on that bubble, but I need you to start instead of popping up here and there, I need you to start bossing games consistently with the second team when you're there. And then when you get with the first team, take your chances when you can get them and start growing into that. So for a guy like him, that's where it should be. If he I'm assuming Luke would be in New York because first team's not playing.
Right.
If he's out there, hey man, give me 70 minutes of hell and just make if you're to where you are in your career and what we're expecting out of you, it should be go out there and make them miserable and make them saying, thank God if you sub out in the 70th.
Thank God. That's what we're looking for. Like I said, NYCFC 2, Atlanta United 2, 5 o'clock, 5:03 kick, pregame here on the network, 4:30-ish, and it's on MLSNextPro.com. So looking forward to that one. A big game for Atlanta United 2 as they chase the playoffs. There are a handful of games in Major League Soccer this weekend because, once again, it is still up to teams as to whether or not they want to take international windows off or if they don't. And so you have 12 teams that have decided, or maybe it was decided for them because of international competition, that they are playing And we'll go over the standings once again with these clubs after we go through all the juice boxes and everything. But once again, big weekend in MLS Next Pro, USL Championship, League One. We'll have the USL Championship and USL League One programs up in addition to the MLS Next Pro program. That'll be up later this afternoon. We'll get into the matches themselves. And like I said, we'll get into standings when it comes to how things are in the East and the West. Jarrett, to lead things off at 7:30, so basically a 7:40 kick. A 7:40 kick, it is Columbus and Seattle. So Columbus minus 114.
If we're doing takes here, that's
Yeah.
Columbus.
Yeah. Columbus a minus 114. Your draw is a plus 263, and Seattle is a plus 303.
Columbus to burn everyone's houses down and storm off with their loot.
Yes.
Forever and ever, amen.
Yes. Arr. I didn't get a pirate's arg out of you.
RIP to the Dread Pirates.
Yes. Absolutely. Also 7:40 kick. The Revs in all caps at Gillette. New England is a plus 125. Your draw is a plus 269. And all caps on the road is a plus 193. So the Revs are favored big here.
I mean, they're at home. All caps are weird in that, like, they're kind of changing how they play. Like, they did the thing last year where it was a lot of high press. They got a lot of gifts throughout the season, but it had some paper tiger energy when it comes to, like, the American style of having playoffs where things get tight. It's not to take away from what's a fantastic regular season, but then they didn't recreate it this year, but also they didn't really spend a lot of money for the manager.
No.
Brother Carnell. But now they're spending money and they're kind of changing it. And they're playing a little bit more with the ball and they're a little more pragmatic. And New England already kind of spit the bit last week. I would take New England in this game, but I think St. Louis is kind of tricky to play right now.
Yeah.
Like, Atlanta only got a point out of that game in St. Louis, which was annoying. You'd love to have gotten more, even though it gave us the greatest moment in Barb and pro history. With the however, but it wasn't. I'm kind of glad they played them then because they're kind of weird now. I don't know if they're as good. I don't know if they're as dangerous. They're just kind of in the middle of like a transitional phase, and I feel like transitional phases like that, like you can occasionally pop up and bite someone. So like I would take New England here, but I'd kind of be weary if I was New England and kind of I want this fight to be at arm's length. I don't want them getting inside.
Out for the Revs, Tomas Shankalai out for the season. Al Hassan Yusuf in the parentheses, not due to injury. And Brandon Bai is out with an ankle for the Revs. For all caps, it is out. Ostrak Pompeu with injuries. Questionable Rasmus Alm, Joao Klaus, and Joachim Nielsen. So you got the dudes that you're looking at to try to score or at least try to instigate scoring. Joao Klaus, questionable with a knee. Joachim Nielsen, questionable with a hammy. So intriguing offensive options will have to be made available for all caps going to New England on Saturday. So Palace intrigue continues with all caps. The other 7:40 kick, Red Bulls and Sporting Kansas City. Red Bulls a big favorite. Red Bulls a minus 156. Your draw is a plus 308. Sporting Kansas City is a plus 393.
You know what? Kansas City just go full bore here. Don't even care about anything else until U.S. Open Cup final. That's all that matters. That's all that matters here. Is you should just nothing else matters except and hey Rich, nothing else. I guess you'll enjoy this. Then nothing else. Nothing should matter except like putting another anvil on LAFC's head. And sorry, Rich, at the time. Again, that Gareth Bale last gasp header and weird ass shootout is the only final that LAFC has won. Otherwise, they got they have like 5 lost finals.
Yeah.
Losing one to the withered corpse of Kansas City and Peter Vermes in a constant state of will he or won't he step down and relinquish control of this team would be genuinely hilarious, highly entertaining.
Yes.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Yes.
So give me New York and Kansas City. I need you to I need this to be like. I need this to be like the Warhammer God Emperor. I need you to sacrifice as many souls as you can.
Yeah.
To power up the weapons needed to beat LAFC.
Yes.
If that means you lose 8-0, that means you lose 8-0.
So we'll see what happens with that one. A definite Palace intrigue there, and we'll see who picks up the scoring with the continued injuries of Emil Forsberg. 8:40 kick. Chicago fired DC United. We mentioned that earlier this week, Christian Benteke signed a contract extension to hang around for a while. Hell, if I was doing what I was doing, if I was Christian Benteke,
he's gonna set a world record in aerial duels for one at this rate.
Yes. Fire are favored at a plus 104. Draws a plus 267, and DC United on the road is a plus 237. Chicago on the road this year is 2-7-5. And wait a second. I'm looking at the wrong bunch. Hang on. On the road, 3-5-5, and Chicago at home is 4-6-3. So something's got to give in this one.
It does, and this is this kind of game I was talking about in the last week with respect to Atlanta United's schedule, and that you have a lot of these teams that are Atlanta's playing a bunch of the teams around them.
Yep.
The teams around you are also playing each other a bunch. There's going to be a lot of unfriendly stabbings that happen in these games.
Yes.
Between teams. These are ones where you're like, hey, y'all want to play this to a draw? That'd be fine with me. Whatever kind of helps create a little bit of breathing room. DC is not complicated. Don't let Christian Benteke do Christian Benteke things, and you're in pretty decent shit. You like your chances, assuming Josh Cohen doesn't go completely insane in your Leagues Cup match, which is still not over personally. But yeah, man. I guess give me DC, but I would love to see the 1-1, the 1-1 or 0-0 draw. Yeah, and everybody's gassed.
Yes. The other 8:40 start. The Dynamo are hosting LAFC. Dynamo favored at a minus 102. Draws a plus 276, and LAFC is a plus 252. Rich lets us know that Dynamo Dose has Kenny Bundy. Dynamo 2 head coach Kenny Bundy has been named an interim assistant coach with the first team. So Dynamo Academy U15 head coach Jeremy Hurdle is now going to serve as Dynamo Dose's interim head coach. So promotions from within during the stretch run for both Dynamo Dose and for the parent club, as the parent club is hosting LAFC Saturday night at a minus 102, favored going in.
Don't play Houston. How about that? Houston's just uncomfortable to play against. They're good. Benny Ball's back, dude. And now we're adding some. Now Bundy's getting into the lab with Benny. Oh Jesus.
Bundy and Benny.
Okay. I don't really care. Again, whatever souls we have to siphon off to the super weapon for LAFC to lose another final, hilariously so, make it happen. If that means LAFC has to just truck everybody until the U.S. Open Cup final, then so be it. Fine with that.
So you're looking for a pound of flesh from Bundy and Benny going
for the greater good.
Yes, for the greater good. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But again, Houston's very uncomfortable to play against. Kind of like being locked in the trunk with a Wolverine. Not really ideal for anyone involved, including the Wolverine. Houston's just good though. Houston is kind of Houston's taken it a step further than what I thought
Mm-hmm.
from San Jose last year. We saw San Jose last year, and I thought they would just be kind of fun, weird, good, and they were just good. It did not translate to 2024.
No, it did not.
Obviously. But Houston translated that weird, fun, good of winning Open Cup last year into being like just good.
Mm-hmm.
So, good job, Benny.
Yes.
Still, I think very, very, very well thought of by many people, and Benny Ball is back to burn down houses.
Yes. Just a quick reminder about the other match on the board: Vancouver and FC Dallas, 10:40 Eastern time start. You see, I'm adding the 10 minutes because in the grid it's listed at from our juice box purveyors as a 10:30 start, but we all know that Apple's going to take the extra 10 for TV. So 10:40 start. Vancouver's a plus 102 at home, taking on FC Dallas. Draws the plus 270, and FC Dallas on the road is a plus 244. Vancouver at home this year. Vancouver traditionally very tough place to play. They're 5-4-2 at home, 7-4-3 away from home, which is really interesting. Dallas away from home. They've only won once in 13. I'm looking at Vancouver here to continue that role.
Yeah, Vancouver. It's weird Vancouver's not as good at home just because that's such a massive road trip.
Yep.
For everybody except the other two Cascadia teams.
Oh.
That's very weird. That's such a long ass haul to get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
To get up to BC Place. Give me Vancouver and the remnants of 2017 Scottish national team.
Yes.
Stuart Armstrong there now on a DP deal.
Yes.
Along with Rangel, who should be part of Scotland's setup now, but he's not consistently. I know he got called in. Great. He should be consistently part of it, along with Lewis Morgan. Johnny Russell's past it, but Johnny Russell should have been part of the setup too. Not that there won't be belly aching and bitching by Scottish fans, because Scotland and MLS are kind of locked in the most really unnecessary Cold War in recorded history.
Right now, looking at who's not going to be available. No Cucho for the crew. And you also have some other cast members who are not going to be available. So keep an eye out for who's available for crew and who's not available. Crew should take care of business. And when they do, next week is Hell is Real. And you get to take a peek at second place in the Eastern Conference at that point.
It's also Vanni Sartini is just an absolute delight.
Yes.
When he's not casually discussing committing roadside murder.
Yeah.
That one got a little out of line.
That one got a little out of line, he says. Yes.
But other than that, I do adore Vancouver and what they are doing.
Yes. Yeah, we are fans of Vanni Sartini. Also looking at just the news and notes of who might be around and who won't. For LAFC, no Bouanga, no Bogusz, no Oliveira. So you'll have that to worry about. Once again, Vancouver signing DP Stuart Armstrong. Do you roll Stuart Armstrong out for a cup of coffee going up against FC Dallas? I think you do.
Yeah, and Bogusz was linked to Celtic for a while, and that's not happening. So, no lost player there if you are LAFC. Bogusz was Celtic was looking to bring him in to help reinforce the loss of Matt O'Reilly to Brighton.
Yep.
Once again, Atalanta up on the bag. Atalanta was in negotiations with him to replace Moranchu, and they just kept lowballing Celtic 5 times in a row. Celtic was like, hey Brighton, you just take him. It's 25 or 30 million. Just take him. For God's sake, just get us out of this negotiating hell.
Yes.
Please. But yeah, they had to wait. They were trying to get it done, and LAFC kept pushing off on it because they were trying to get through League Cup. And then it just kind of collapsed and not happened. So we'll see what he's able to do with them for the rest of the year.
Yes. So we got to keep an eye on all of that. So this is your reminder of reminders. that if you make a point, if you've been in the fantasy league, that because of all of the international duties that are going on this week, fix your fantasy teams. This is a week where you have to fix your fantasy teams appropriately because of who is not playing in this week because of international duty, what have you. So, once again, yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to quickly sign up for Sounder at Heart while I was going at it.
Well, and see, here's the thing as well, is like to the point of to Rich's point, MLS and Louisiana International for makeup days. It'd be great. I think I know, John, you mentioned, I think it's still a thing as well that teams can basically push to be okay or to not play through international windows.
Yes.
I think it depends by team. I know Minnesota fans were pissed for at least a couple of years because Minnesota always played through the window. They were never losing more than like one or two players in international duty.
Right.
This is even when Minnesota, like, this isn't, we're not talking about like bad Minnesota, like 6 years ago Minnesota. We're talking like 2-3 years ago. Minnesota's fine. Not top of the league, but fine. But they'd be missing one or two guys, and they would still play through it, even though they're not missing 4, 5, 6, 7, as some clubs are nowadays.
Right.
But fans were kind of annoyed by it. I would love to see them find a way around this. That being said, it's tough with the schedule the way it is, where you have added in Leagues Cup. It is a month-long break. You're still trying to figure out Open Cup stuff. Like, the schedule's already long. I don't know how you balance it all, but yeah, it'd be nice to find a way to make Leagues Cup, make the international window more of a, hey, we can play like fun friendlies or makeup games, that kind of thing. It's just you don't get many in the way of makeup games, other than we had to reschedule because somebody went on an absurd run. Happens occasionally, but not consistently enough.
Reason that I wanted to bring up MLS in this particular segment, this particular section, is yesterday when Nico was on. Before he comes on, usually we'll do like a quick little DM session and figure out what's on his mind. He reaches out to me in our DM session and says that, there's a story that I'm working on and we might be able to talk about it when I come on the show yesterday. He couldn't do it yesterday because it was with the editors at Sounder at Heart, and they were still trying to figure out how does it pass through standards and practices before we publish it. It was published yesterday, and it is from Sounder at Heart and Nico's byline that Raul Ruidiaz has told Seattle that he is leaving at the end of this season. So, as Nico writes, not returning, lack of playing time, division within the locker room, and a feeling that he's been undervalued are the reasons that apparently Raul Ruidiaz is not returning to the team in 2025. Quoting Nico, news of Ruidiaz's displeasure should not be a huge surprise to anyone who's been watching, as his role has diminished this year in spite of the forward's efforts to adapt on and off the field, all been compounded by what was described as a decaying relationship with Brian Schmetzer over the last 2 years, a decline in morale among multiple players, and a locker room that Sounder at Heart is told, quote, no longer has the unity, camaraderie, and serenity that it once had. Marked by several off-field situations in 2024. Seemed out of character for a team historically done a good job of keeping matters in-house. Earlier this year, both Ruidiaz and Nuhu were unofficially disciplined for a quote, post-game argument that followed the striker's demotion from the starting ranks. Leo Chu, which Nico did mention yesterday. Leo Chu has repeatedly shown frustration with coaches when being removed from matches. There was a players-only meeting that focused, at least in part, on body language in the midst of the worst start in club history. Rui Diaz's frustration, Nico continues, does not seem to stem directly from his relative lack of playing time, sources said. Instead, what has caused the frustration is the perception of poor communication with a player who was willing to adapt to playing more as a facilitator rather than as a classic number 9, as long as it meant playing more. But after starting 14 of the club's first 17, Rui Diaz has not started any of the last 15 games across all comps. Last start was the loss to Sporting back on June 8. Sounders have gone 11-15-1 across all comps in the 17 matches since then. The Sounders have gone 4-5-5 in Rui Diaz's starts. Nico says if this all seems familiar, it's because a similar situation played out with Nico Ladero last year when he expressed a love for the city and fans, but said he didn't feel as if he was being sufficiently welcomed back to the team for the 24th season. And so Nico says it seems inevitable that another Sounders legend is going to part ways with the team on bad terms. Regardless of how Rui Diaz feels, sources have indicated Sounders remain open to revisiting negotiations, but all indications are Rui Diaz intends to at least test the free agency waters for the first time in his career. Nico goes on to say that bringing him back was never simple. You've also got the Club World Cup. And then Nico says, well, what's next for him at the age of 34? Reality is he's got a variety of options depending on what the Peru native wants out of the next chapter in his illustrious career. Remember, on Thursdays, there have been times, and literally as this story was being written, where Nino, being the Peruvian lover of I think it's of Universitario, brought up Universitario as a part of the discussion. Does he go home? Does he go home to Peru? Does he go and make Nino's dreams come true? Universitario, undeniably the team most interested, Nico writes. They have publicly expressed their strong desire to bring him back to Miraflores. That's a part of it. Although there is already an undisclosed Liga MX team monitoring the former Golden Boot winner, Nico believes MLS teams will have the edge when it comes to pursuing the experienced attacker in the offseason. From an economic standpoint, not disrupting his family's current lifestyle and based on prior conversations, Nico says, I know Rui Diaz would like to stay in Major League Soccer. Paragraph. Bolstering that possibility is that both New England and Atlanta United showed serious interest in Rui Diaz as recently as the summer transfer window and were close to finalizing a deal. Either team could make a serious play to bring in the striker this winter. And then Nico goes on to write about Craig Weibel, GM for Seattle, facing his biggest test, 2025 being a pivotal season, Club World Cup, and all the other things. You have the young players that are there, decisions on Rusnak, João Paulo, Jackson Reagan, Brian Schmetzer, that we've had the discussions with Nico about in the past. The future of Brian Schmetzer is a part of it. But the bottom of that article, where Nico says that the Revs and Atlanta United interested Jarrett in pulling the trigger on possibly bringing Raul Rui Diaz into the fold. You've had for the second year in a row a frustrated star in Seattle, and it looks like Atlanta, part of the shtick.
How different would it be? Because I'm here to tell you right now that I like Raul Rui Diaz.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a really good player for them since 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
He's been very good for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is a DP starting striker at this point anymore. He has not consistently stayed healthy over the last year and a half.
Right.
I know his role has changed there. An entirely different conversation can be had about Seattle, and it's one that I'll try and make time to come for next week, talk to Nico about, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know all about Seattle's ins and outs the way Nico does.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring him here, I don't think that could be your starting striker. Not just for talent reasons, but Garth Lagerwey has talked way too much of a big game to bring in a retread for Seattle. As good as Raul Rui Diaz has been his career. When you have talked the game that you have talked, if your striker you bring in is a guy in his 30s who was playing for Seattle and was discontent. There will be yelling. There will be lots and lots and lots of yelling. My thinking is, though, if you decide, hey, come in here and be part of the rotation
Mm-hmm.
and be part of the depth, is that something he wants? Rui Diaz betting on himself, I have zero problem with. But I think Atlanta has set themselves up through comments to chase bigger fish.
Yeah.
And would he want to come here now? Would he be willing to take? Maybe this is a I want to get out of Seattle and I'm willing to take a similar role elsewhere. Maybe different. That is a horse of different color. If that's the case, don't know if that's the case. But if it is, cool. Let's talk. New England, of course, would probably talk with him as well. Other clubs in MLS probably would talk with him as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I here. I mean, I don't think he'd be starting 30 plus games.
No.
I think he'd be part of a rotation. And is that something he would be okay with? So how old is Rui Diaz? Let's find out.
34.
34 years old. Yeah.
Currently 34.
He is 34. I know he's had some injury issues, had some issues with Brian Schmetzer. Again, that's an entirely different conversation. Like the fact that Seattle's needed to hit the hard reset, which is a hard decision to make. They're to the point now they really do need to hit that hard reset. I think just from my view from a couple thousand miles away, no big deal. But I've been wondering, like, when Spencer was struggling this year, I was wondering, do you give him the Pete Carroll treatment?
Yeah.
Of, hey, we're gonna move on. But wait, we need to. It's time for all of us to move on.
Yeah.
Collectively. However, we're not going to throw you out in the cold. How's about a front office division? And we'll just call it square.
Mm-hmm.
That I'll be interested to see. And then what they would do, because I don't know who their ready-made. I don't know if they have a ready-made replacement. Would have been Gonzo in a different world,
right?
In a different timeline. Hell, it might be Gonzo as the next guy after that. I don't know. But yeah. Rui Diaz, if you'd have told me, hey, we got Rui Diaz to finish out the year, I'm fine with that. If you're not going to go get a DP striker in the summer, and you would have just swung for Rui Diaz and just to change the scenery guy, cool. But again, he's 34 years old. It's hard for me to hand a 34-year-old guy 30 plus starts a year and call him my centerpiece of one of my centerpieces of my attack.
Right. Well, and considering right now that placement of your 2 and your 3, if you assume that you're chasing after a starting striker, you've got Daniel Rios and Jamal Thierry. And
I still think you're only keeping one of those either way.
Right. But either way, if you keep one, then you've certainly got your 2 and your 3 squared away, regardless of who you keep, if Rui Diaz was that individual that was going to be brought in. So, it is a numbers game with who you have in hand doing what they've been doing. And we'll be the first to sit here and say that Daniel Rios has outperformed the contract that he was signed to. And so the question is, and I would imagine that Raul Rui Diaz would sit there and say, yeah, I want to be a part of something. I accept this role of coming off the bench and being a microwave and, and anticipating that you have an expectation of me when I come in to spot start or give you 30 or whatever, that you're looking for instant offense. I think that would probably end up being a given as a part of the conversation, that you be the 2 or the 3, and we have an expectation of you since we're not starting you for 30 plus matches a year.
I think Rui Diaz could find a team that would give him a split of, hey, we already have a guy, but he's not the guy. Mm-hmm. Come in here and split time with him. I think he could find that situation in this league without really trying too hard.
Yep.
I think he'd be able to find that and be able to be successful at it. I think, like I said, a lot of it just depends on what does Rui Diaz want.
Yeah.
What is he comfortable with accepting?
Yep.
And how much of it is location based? Is this I'm willing to be the guy splitting time or playing a second string, just not in Seattle. or is it I want to be starting as many games as humanly possible because I still think I can do it? Okay,
Yeah.
well, that might change the teams that are looking at you.
Right.
But the Rios one is going to be interesting too because I agree. Like Rios outperformed his contract this year so far.
Yep.
With room to even if Daniel Rios didn't score another goal for the rest of the season for Atlanta United or did not assist another goal, he still outperformed what I expected of him. And gets a hearty handshake and slap on the back out the door. And on the way through the airport, stop on one of the little stands, pick out whatever candy you want. I'll buy it for you.
Yep.
In a bottle, like a giant bottle of smart water or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll get expensive with it.
Go to duty free. We'll pick it up.
Yeah. But I wonder if, Rios is on loan. I don't know if there's a trigger there to buy him outright. I don't know what Jamal's contract situation is either. And I would have to expect Rios is going to be able to point to this season with Atlanta United and bet on himself to see if he can get a better situation. Not necessarily to say like that Atlanta's a bad situation for him. Obviously, it's worked, but to see if he can find himself a situation where he can compete for starting minutes. Because, like I said, you set the table and set the stage in Atlanta to go get a big swing striker, like 9 figures. Or sorry, not 9 figures. Jesus, I can't count.
Well, including
8-figure striker. Well, 9 figures would be over $100 million.
Right, 9 to the left, 9 including the decimal points.
Yeah, an 8-figure striker. So you're going to be struggling to compete with that now. You want to stay and be the backup to that? Cool, man. I really like what Daniel Rios gives you. Don't know if he's going to want to hang with that.
To answer your question, it is a loan with Rios to the end of the calendar year from Chivas, and Jamal's contract is out at the end of the season as well. Jamal is one of the 9 in 24. Brad, Dax, Jamal, Rios' loan, Ronald, Firmino, Efra, Tyler Wolf, Jay Fortune. Those are your 9 that end this year.
Efra, and okay, let's play this game real quick. I know we're in stoppage time.
It's all good. It's all good.
Well, I have a time limit.
Okay.
But I don't know where you have to go tonight. All over the godforsaken state.
It is Hughes and Douglas County. Airtime 7:30 on GPB, GPB.org, and the GPB Sports app.
There you go. I'm actually not doing anything tonight. I do not have to go do a high school football game.
You're staying dry.
Staying dry, man. But of those guys, like Goose will be interesting to see if he wants like one more year, and then you got to figure out, what does that look like for him, because Goose looks a lot better this year than he did last year. Dax, we know, is done. I think Dax said he'll come back if they win the cup.
Yes, that was a bet that he has with Saba. Yes.
Yeah, that if they win the cup, he'll come back for 1 more year. And I'm here for it. Like something has
come closer to your head end. You're kind of drifting.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Saba, something has changed with Saba in a fun way. Like post kid Saba is a different kind of Saba.
Yeah.
And I kind of feels more leadery.
Yeah.
Which can happen. Ronald, I don't think is coming back. If I had to guess. Jamal or Rios, one of them, just depends, and it might just depend on how the money works out, who wants what, because Chivas might want would want a transfer fee for Rios if he's still under contract with them, and meanwhile you could probably get Jamal for free. Just would you want one over the other? Efra, I'm keeping if I can. Maybe Luis Abraham is like a casualty in all of that.
Right.
Because like I've already got, Stian and Derek Williams. Derek Williams was a fantastic get by that front office. That's a great move. Like Garrison Tubbs might clear him down the road.
Yeah.
Like Garrison Tubbs, incredibly talented kid. But you cleared out the money in the spot. I don't know how if they were mutually exclusive or how tied together those moves were, but like Derek Williams was a great get. It was a great bit of work on the front office. But Ephra, I'm trying to keep.
Yes.
He and Noah Cobb are going to keep knocking on the door,
Mm-hmm.
and then Jay, second half with Jay, what Jay has shown you in the second half of the season, I gotta try and lock him up. And I don't know what I'm going to get consistently out of Tristan Williams-Ba and Bartek Sliš in the midfield. Dax is gone.
Right.
I think Aiden Torres is going to be a homegrown, but Aiden Torres I don't think is ready for that. Even though Aiden Torres might bite someone's leg off and beat them to death with the bloody end.
Yes.
Like I gotta get Jay's contract done, and I want to get Ephra's contract done. Don't want to lose those guys.
Right.
Not just in look, their cost as homegrowns is part of that, but also the damn production you're getting out of them.
And so those are the questions that we have involving the 24s. Like I said, we mentioned the 24s. Your 25s, Westberg, Derek, Shonday, Luis Abram, Brooks Lennon, Josh Cohen, Matthew Edwards. Those are your 25s to give you an idea. Tristan is a 26. Saba is a 26. Amador is a 26. So are Mosqueda and Noah Cobb. Your 27s are Gregerson, Miranchuk.
Way the hell out there now.
Yeah, it is Gregerson, Miranchuk, Brennan, and Aiden Torres, and Bart Sliš is a 28. So that's where we are with contracts and numbers involving Atlanta United. So,
and shout out to the club for actually being transparent about their contract runouts too, because not everyone else is.
Yeah, God bless Transfermarkt for actually having it all on the line.
Atlanta did earlier this season. Wasn't even Transfermarkt. Started the season, Atlanta posted that stuff. Shout out to them for doing it, because they not other clubs just kind of throwing that information out there like that.
Yep. So let's see. Looks like Debinha. Just some news before we get out of here. Kansas City and Debinha agreed on a new contract through 26 with a mutual option for 27. Contract expired at the end of the 24 season, and she was on the NWSL free agents list. Reminder, once again, that you have the twos in New York. The twos are in New York with NYCFC 2. Kickoff at 5:03. Pregame a little before that. You'll hear from Steve Cook, the head coach. You'll hear the highlights of all the chaos in Chattanooga from last time out. Looks like the U18 roster has been announced as they're going to Japan for a tournament facing Japan, Peru, and a local club. The team will be led by Michael Encian, the head coach of the U20s. And I'm trying to see if there are any local names that are here from the SDH footprint. I'm scanning quickly. Keepers Campagnolo and Rizvanovic. Defenders Bayera, Brown, De Almeida, Magana Jr., and Harbor Miller and Neil Pierre. Midfielders Colin Gusky, who we know from OCB. Darius Lane from Brighton. Santi Morales from Inter Miami. Axel Perez, Jonathan Shore from NYCFC. Aiden Torres is on this list for the 26th International Youth Football Tournament for the U18. So Aiden Torres will be taking time for this tournament. Forwards, Stefan Chirila from FC Cincinnati, Justin Ellis, Aiden Hazarkani, Leonardo Orejarena from North Texas, and Daniel Pinter from Inter Miami, and Santiago Pita from Atlanta United. So the U18's youth roster heading to the tournament in Japan will have Aiden Torres on it, and we'll have Santiago Pita on it. So very, very cool stuff there involving the Atlanta United and the system as we continue to get folks going to tournaments and representing what the academy is building on a global scale.
Yep, just go make them look good, kids.
Yes, go make them look good. All right, so what to watch before we get out of here? What to watch and where to watch it? College is all over the place. BN has AFCON qualifying at 2 o'clock. If you don't have BN, you can go to Fanatis, fntz.co/soccer down here. Pick up Fanatis. You get Fanatis, CDO, Nuestro Tele, Te Se for the fans, Liga 1 Max, Liga 1 Max Pro. All of the divisions, South America, basically, Libertadores, Sudamericana through BN. You can watch Morocco and Gabon at 2 o'clock if you are so inclined. Group play in Nations League is underway on FS2. Kazakhstan and Norway, Lithuania and Cyprus is at noon. The U20 Women's World Cup, Mexico, Colombia is at 6. Canadian Premier League is at 10 with Vancouver and York United. BN Sports in Espanol is simulcasting AFCON. Telemundo has Brazil and Ecuador at 9 o'clock tonight. Remember, we talked about CONMEBOL yesterday with Nino and Nico. Universo has the U20s, Mexico and Colombia at 6. Prime has their Friday night match, Angel City and Seattle. The sale of Angel City apparently is officially official to Bob Iger and Willow Bay for $250 million. Congratulations on that. The Plus has USL Championship, Louisville and Loudoun at 7:30. Fox Soccer Plus has group play in the Nations League, Wales and Malta at noon. Women's World Cup, Australia, Cameroon at 6. Golazo Network has New Mexico United and Miami from the Lab at 9. Paramount Plus has CONCACAF Nations League group play for you true degenerates. 3, 6, 7 matches, most of them at 8 o'clock tonight. And New Mexico and Miami on USL Championship pay-per-view if you are so inclined to pay for it. World Cup qualifying, Uruguay, Paraguay, Peru, and Colombia. Peacock has the Super League, Carolina, Ascent, and Fort Lauderdale. VIX has all of your group play action in Nations League with 8 matches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them at 2:45, and that is your Friday. That's a full show, man. Woo. And we are all, as I said, we are all San Marino. We are all San Marino today, as evidenced by busting out the scarf and saying that we are all San Marino. So anything else to say before we get out of here for yet another week here on SDH?
Nope. Let's go.
The war was on. The keys on the typewriter had sharp points that kept sticking into our fingers. The dictating equipment started asking us questions, and our beepers sent electric shocks just through our body like a cattle prod. Out in the warehouse, the trucks kept banging into the docks, not even thinking about stopping. Oh, our frail bodies were strapped to the chairs, and our chairs were chained to the desks. Our pleas for justice were ignored, and the end seemed near. But we busted our slave drivers' little bitty balls. We've charged out of their brick fortress. The streets are ours.